Okay, hi guys, and welcome to CBAT TV. As you know, we bring some real good experts to the forum for you to listen to, and they give up their time for free, which is exceptional, and we thank them for it. This time, I've got someone really special for you because I've got someone who is the director of operations from a charity that I've supported for a long time, and I know many of you will have supported for a long time. So we have Helen Foster, who's the director of operations at the Alzheimer Society. So thank you very much, Helen, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Brilliant. Helen, I think what I'm going to try and get out of this for the listeners is a little bit of insight into what the charity does, the work it does, and why it's so important. And then if we can touch a bit around the, you can't get away from it, the COVID-19 and the impacts on that, and all the great things that you've got coming up as well. Because we really need to get people to understand the importance of not just your own charity, a lot of charities out there, because it's not necessarily like the government's giving it a lot of money to fund it. It takes public people to support. So, I'm really looking forward to this one, but I'm going to start off, and I think for every listener now, some of you will have done training courses in this before. Some of you will be, have a good level of knowledge within this subject. Some of you may not. So I think we need to go right back to the basics. I mean, the charity is called the Alzheimer Society. So can you give us a bit of a brief on what Alzheimer's is, what Alzheimer's disease is?
Yes, certainly. And although we're called Alzheimer Society, we actually support people with any kind of dementia. So Alzheimer's, in particular, Alzheimer's disease, is the most common form of dementia. And out of that, about 850,000 people who live with dementia in the UK, around 520,000 are living with Alzheimer's disease. It's a name, dementia is a name for a kind of umbrella condition, really, in the same way we might say respiratory disease or heart disease. Dementia is used in that term, and there are over 100 types of dementia. Altogether, some very, very rare, some affect young people, but the vast majority of people do live with Alzheimer's disease. So dementia is a set of symptoms, really, that describe a number of things that happen. Physical illness, it's really important to recognise this is a physical illness, this is not a mental illness. Neither is it a normal part of ageing. Those are two of the most common bits that people misunderstand, really. So it tends to affect people aged 65 and over the most, but it can start in 40s and 50s, and we would call that young onset dementia or young onset Alzheimer's disease. It's a problem really around memory. And over a period of time, memory is lost, but also cognitive ability is lost. So people who live with a condition have problems planning things, doing everyday tasks eventually, like, tying your shoelaces, getting dressed in the morning, because they lose that cognitive ability. And in Alzheimer's disease, that's caused by the brain not sending messages very effectively to be able to perform those kind of functions and to remember things. And that's caused, again, in Alzheimer's by the buildup of proteins on these nerves in the brain. We also know that people who have Alzheimer's disease have less of the chemicals in their brain that help these messages go around your brain to do everyday tasks, but we don't know why that is yet. There is no cure. There is no real effective treatment. There's a couple of treatments for Alzheimer's, but not other kinds of dementia, that really, they are effective to some extent, but they kind of hold it back a little bit and nothing more than that. So no cure, no effective treatments. It is degenerative, so it progresses over a period of time, depending on the type of dementia, etc. So it's really, really life limiting, not only in terms of years of your life, but actually what people can do. And it affects whole families and friends of people living with it.
Yeah, I think couple of points there that you touched upon, which are very important. The fact that it affects whole families, because that understanding and empathy, and dealing with your own mental health in a way around it as well as a family unit, can sometimes be very challenging. So it's not just for the person, as you say. Is it hereditary?
Generally not. There are some very, very rare kinds that are hereditary, but they affect people who are in their 30s and 40s. So generally, it isn't hereditary. We don't understand yet the kind of genetic effects of dementia as a whole. There are some, I don't know, risks, I guess you would say. So the biggest risk being age. So once people are over 65, their likelihood of developing dementia increases. Actually, your gender as well. So over 65, about twice as many women develop dementia than men. But women live longer as well. So we're trying to find out if that's part of the reason. Other conditions can be a kind of precursor to it. So diabetes in particular gives a bigger risk. Also heart disease, if you've had a stroke, high blood pressure, the things. We have a saying that, healthy heart and healthy brain are linked together, really.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. I was actually going to touch upon that. Would healthy living in your lifestyle it wouldn't necessarily be a preventative measure, but it'd certainly help, just based on what's been said.
Yes, in the same way that we try to eat a healthy diet for heart disease or to prevent heart disease, we would. So gentle exercise all through your life, eating healthy, low fat, keep cholesterol levels low. We understand that reduces the risk. But very recent research is beginning to show that by the time you're in your 40s, the markers are there for whether or not you're going to develop dementia. So we need to live a healthy life right from a very young age. So if you suddenly change your lifestyle in your 40s, whilst it will do you good, it may not prevent the onset of dementia in later life.
Okay, I think that's some really good knowledge to give to the listeners, and I hope you take on board what's just been said there, because it's a very important point. One question that I always seem to get hit with is this a relatively new thing? And I think when people talk about new, they sort of like they've heard more about it in the last 20 years than they ever did before. I sort of like, just looking at it, would look at the fact that we are an aging population all the time. So it probably with stats, figures, population sizes, it's become much more prominent with that aged relationship that we have. Am I completely wrong in saying that, or is it sort of like evidence that you guys have looked at as well?
No, you're in essence absolutely correct. We have an aging population. People are living a lot longer, even when they lived 20 years ago. So the older we live, the higher our risk, and significantly higher. Yeah. So, but also we've done campaigning as a charity for I've been with the charity 15 years, and we've always done campaigning to raise awareness and to. When my mum had vascular dementia many years ago, it was called senile dementia because it was associated with old age, and to make people understand that actually it's not a normal part of aging. It isn't something that's inevitably going to happen. So I think the two really, but you're quite right. Aging's the biggest factor.
Brilliant. You've actually led me on to what my next question was going to be, and that was the charity. How long has the charity been around, Helen? You say you've been there 15 years. How long has it been going?
It was launched in 1979 by a couple of carers. So we had our 40th anniversary last year. We're really looking forward to the 50th anniversary and beyond that.
Wow.
And things have changed radically over that time. When the charity was launched, people wouldn't even use the word dementia. It was very much almost a shame to have dementia in your family 40 years ago, in the same way that when I was a child in the 60s, no one talked about cancer.
Yeah.
Now we talk about that openly, and dementia needs to be in that same way that we look at illnesses.
Yeah, we can't bury our head in the sand on this one. It needs to be out there. I'm just interested. I mean, something you just said there I never knew. So it was started by two carers. Um, I mean, for the carers out there listening, whether you're a professional carer or whether you're someone caring for a loved one or family members, look at what has happened because two carers got their heads together and decided they needed to start something, almost like a revolution in this. So everybody can get out there and do something and start something. That's incredible. It was started by two carers. So it's been around for since that date. What, in terms of where we look at where the charity is today, what sort of things is it doing? You've mentioned a couple of things, but looking at your website and that, there's a lot of stuff that you guys are doing. But can you just give us a little insight into the world of the charity?
Yeah, sure. So we have three main functions, and our vision ultimately is a world without dementia. Now, that's not going to happen in my lifetime, but that's our ultimate goal. To be able to say we're not needed anymore because there is no dementia, it's all curable or treatable. But that is a long, long way off. So we have three main functions. The first and the one closest to my heart is support. And so I'm director of all our services that we provide with other organisations, sometimes by ourselves, to support families through that experience of living with dementia. The other thing that we do is we campaign very strongly. So we lobby the government and local authorities, the NHS, to make sure that dementia is always on their agenda. And thirdly, we research and fund research as well into prevention and cure. So those are the three functions.
Wonderful. So in terms of, you're very reliant on the donations that come in from the public, I gather. Is that the only source of revenue that you have coming in, or does the government actually fund as well towards it?
It's our main source of revenue is incredibly generous people, either giving, and companies as well, sponsoring events, and individuals doing events for us. That is our main source of income. We do provide some services that are contracted to the NHS and to local authorities. So they give us money, and we have to tender in the same way as any other company has to tender. But that's a very small percentage of our annual turnover. The rest is what we call voluntary income funded.
And I've spoke to a couple of charities over the last couple of months, and I've no doubt that you guys will be in a similar situation, because that support service that you're offering out to people will be a free service where people can access. And it heavily reliant on donations coming in to be able to pay staff and services to support. Have you been affected like other charities during the COVID-19 pandemic? Have you seen less donations coming in, and how is that impacting?
It is impacting us, quite rightly, as you say, Paul, in common with other charities. So we have seen a massive reduction in our donations, mainly through losing our events. So, for example, a loss of the London Marathon would have reduced our income by millions. The loss of other things like 5Ks and 10Ks, the Great North Run, things like that. Our Cupcake Day, which is in June, where normally we ask people to have a bit of a tea party and get people to donate for buying cakes or eating cakes. All of those obviously had to be cancelled. And I'm incredibly grateful to our fundraising team who have started to develop virtual things. So we had a virtual Cupcake Day, but none of those are as effective as the events. And we're looking to lose probably around £40 million this year, which is a heck of a lot of support that will be reduced as a result of that.
We need to do something about that. Not necessarily, well, I was going to say not necessarily me, everybody, but if everybody does a little bit, then we'll help. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud now that based on the numbers that you gave before, it'd be quite unlikely as a person that you're not going to know someone or be related to someone at some point um, that has dementia.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
And if we live to the age of 60 or over, which is no age these days, 1 in 3 of us will go on to develop dementia before we
yeah.
die. And obviously, all the circle then of friends and family are also affected.
So we need you guys, pioneering, pushing the government, lobbying, as you said, offering that support service, getting that awareness out there, because without you, it wouldn't be there. So
No,
on so on that basis, guys, if you're listening to this now, and I'm going to come to this at the end of this interview, but just to sort of like put it up there in the forefront of your mind, even if we can't do the events, we can still donate. I've said to people before, if you were planning on running the London Marathon, run a marathon anyway. That COVID doesn't stop you, and get the sponsorship. You're still achieving it. It doesn't have to be London. When they come back, fantastic. But we've just heard there, £40 million. I mean, that's not £40 million that is going off in some director's pocket to sit on a beach in Barbados. That's £40 million of support going to your loved one, someone that you may be connected with, maybe you. So the more that we can put in, be it £5, £10, wherever it may be, I believe, Helen, you could just go on your website and donate anyway, couldn't you? You don't need to do.
Yes, if you go on our website, you'll see our emergency appeal. Because the other thing, at the same time, we're losing this huge amount of money. The need for our support, has raised in some of our services 600%. So it's kind of a double whammy at the point that we're losing money. The need for us, it has just
you
incredibly.
found that during the COVID period, that need is rising up as well.
Yes, and it's exactly because of COVID that there is a greater need for information and support.
I mean, the strain that must be putting on to people, especially when they went into the lockdown period. And even now, we're not out of it because the R rate keeps rising in certain areas, and back into lockdown you go. So I would imagine, yeah, you're absolutely right in what you're saying. It's sort of like what I was thinking, possibly what everybody else is thinking, that people still need to communicate. They want that level of support. So the first thing they're going to do is come to you guys. And obviously, if the resource is dropping to be able to fund that, it means that the demand is just exceeding what you're capable of doing. We definitely need to do something about that. We need to help these charities out. I don't think people have, I was in the Manchester Marathon, and that got cancelled. And even my own selfish thought at that moment in time really was, oh, I was looking forward to that, and I was looking forward to getting my medal. And if there's anybody from the running community watching this, we do those marathons for fun, but we still try and raise money for a sponsorship for these charities. So whilst we've got ourselves in a position where we're not going to get a medal, and we were looking forward to it, in damn COVID, in reality, think about the money that you guys are missing out on that is so important. So we've got to find other mechanisms, be it virtual, as you said, or just go give the money. And like I said, I'll touch upon it at the end with something that we're doing, and you should be doing as well to help raise the money. You mentioned the three things, Helen, about what the charity is, its aims, if you like, its objectives. So in terms of your 15 years at the charity, how has that changed? I mean, have you seen huge increase in all the services that you're offering?
Yes, generally there has been a huge increase, and a huge increase in demand. So our main service that we offer at the moment is something called Dementia Connect, which is very personalised to what each family wants. So we like to get a referral either directly from the family or from a GP or a hospital, as early as we possibly can, because we can work with that family then right through their, people call it the dementia journey. Personally, I hate that expression. because it's a journey with a really sad outcome in the end. There is no cure for this. So Dementia Connect operates initially on the telephone. We spent about 4 years researching what was the best way to support families for a long period of time, because people can live with dementia for many, many years. Obviously, their needs changing and the family's needs changing over that experience. And we found lots of things. We found the first thing that people needed from us was help to guide the maze that is health and social care. Because if you've never had to use anything like that before, you will absolutely struggle, particularly at a time of crisis and choices taken away from people. So by every family having a highly trained and expert advisor, we do a lot of work over the phone with families, which has been brilliant, because in lockdown we could still continue that work.
Absolutely.
We keep in touch with them on a very regular basis to find out what's happening with them. Are symptoms developing? Do carers need additional support? To prevent crisis, really. And then at a point when the telephone isn't really an option for that family because the disease has, symptoms have increased, we also offer community-based face-to-face advisors who will go out and spend time with families, helping them claim benefits, giving them advice on things like daycare, and even towards end of life, looking for care homes, what to look for, all those kind of things. Very personalised. Some people need it all, some people just need one or two elements of it. But that's the main thing that we do. And probably people will have heard of our incredible Singing for the Brain service as well. I don't understand the science myself, but it's proven that singing lifts people's spirits, which I think we all can relate to.
Absolutely.
But also it's the last thing that the brain kind of forgets how to do. So people sometimes who can't actually speak can still sing. That's the bit of the science I don't understand. And it doesn't really matter from a support point of view. It's about people, being part of a group and singing. All of that is provided virtually since the pandemic got a grip of us. But really very powerful things for families, always having us to turn to. And then probably last but not least, we have an online forum predominantly for carers, not exclusively, but predominantly, where people can go and build friendships, be part of a community, share ideas that's worked for them, and just get support. And that operates obviously 24/7 and internationally as well. So lots of things we do to support people.
So just leading on to that, because it is incredible, the service that you offer, and we should all be very thankful. If you were someone who is experiencing this, say it's your husband, wife, nan, granddad, and you're thinking that something's not right, be it a change in character or the forgetfulness, wherever it is, and you've gone to the doctors, it's a case at that point where they need to reach out to yourselves, isn't it? And get that support, even if it's someone that, like you said, it's that almost friendly and professional service of experts, because it is going to be a big minefield. Whether the world changes, overnight, or whether it changes in the next couple of years, it's actually going to be a position where so many things are happening at such a pace that you've never dealt with before, that you're going to get yourself stressed and wound up about it. And my suggestion is that literally pick up the phone, send an email, go on the website, and get in touch, because the quicker you can get that support around you, I'm not necessarily going to say that it's going to ultimately make everything okay, but it's certainly going to help rather than trying to cope with it on your own, most certainly. And again, I go back to the donations. That's why it's important that we keep this service going. You mentioned before, and I'm sorry to touch on this, but you mentioned before about your own mum having vascular dementia. Has that influenced, having that experience yourself, has that influenced the way in which you're operating the service as a director, because you've had that first-hand experience?
It absolutely does. And at the point, my mum has been dead 20 years, but at the point where she got a diagnosis, there was just no support really. Our organisation, Alzheimer's Society, was very small in those days. I wasn't even aware of it. But since then, I've also been a carer for my mother-in-law, who also had vascular dementia. And I think that's really quite important to either, if you don't have that personal experience, to go out in your job and make sure you get it. So spend time with carers and listen to what their issues are and what their fears are, and spend time with people living with the condition. So because there's nothing that will ever replace that first-hand feedback that you're going to get. And we base a lot of our services on what people tell us they need and what they want.
And ultimately, I mean, I'm going to come at it from the background. I started off as it'd be termed professional carer or care assistant at the tender age of 17, I think I was, when I first got my care role. Now, ultimately, there may be a lot of young carers that are listening in, whether they are caring for their own loved ones again, or whether they're working in a care home or care in the community, somewhere like that. It's very difficult at that age to fully understand what a person's going through. And I always say that we need to improve the support services within the care homes as well, particularly for younger people who, how do I put it without sounding like I'm not doing them a good service? But if you don't understand, if you can't empathize, if you can't find that maturity, if you like, then ultimately, and just putting it out there, you tend to look at the person as more of a pain. And that's an awful word to say, but you'll walk down a different corridor when you see them approaching. And I'm going to put it out there, as much as I progressed quite quickly in my own career, when I look back at who I was at 17, 18 years old, I didn't have the knowledge that I've got now. I didn't have the expertise in general care that I have now. There wasn't really much training and advice out there, and there certainly wasn't an advocate service or a support service that you could go to. It was all in-house, and it might be a video that you watched. And certainly in today's world, and please, if you're an e-learning company, don't hate me, but sometimes it's just as simple as care staff are getting a half an hour e-learning course to do, and Bob's your uncle. Now they're caring for people who are probably progressing at quite a fast pace with dementia.
Yeah, absolutely. And the vast majority of professional carers, if we're going to call them that, are incredible, whatever their age, whether they're young or older. But I absolutely take your point that sometimes it's your life experience, which clearly as you get older, you get more of that, that makes the difference between a good carer and an incredible, excellent carer. And I always say when I talk to professional carers, try and put yourself in the shoes of the person living with the condition. They're going to be frightened. They will have moments of complete lucidity where they're absolutely terrified. What's happening to them? Are they losing their mind? And a lot of behaviours that we see are because people are frustrated. Perhaps they've lost the ability to speak properly. So some of the behaviours also will be really around their frustration, that they don't know where they are. They sometimes feel they've been left, if it's in a care home, by their families. They don't understand. And if you can understand and put yourself in their mindset almost, that is going to make you such an empathetic carer, and will take you into the a great carer. Many of the behaviours, and I know because I did some voluntary work myself when I was kind of the same age that you're talking about, Paul. I was really quite frightened of people who had dementia at that time, or their behaviour. Because they can shout, they can be quite challenging, and I didn't really know how to deal with that. But when I read up that all of that behaviour is because of the inhibitions they're experiencing, particularly if they've got a frontal lobe type of dementia, it helped me understand more, and it helped me to calm them down. And but you're quite right, there is nothing like experience and doing that job. But there does need to be support for particularly young and inexperienced carers to to be comfortable around people with dementia and their families too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That whole person-centered approach, if you like, that we always hear, the buzzword, bringing everybody together for the benefit of the person that you're caring for. Just touching on the care home side, have you found that during the lockdown period, because ultimately most care homes are still in lockdown, where you mentioned before, I'll rephrase this, you mentioned before about people feeling that their families have deserted them if they've gone into care home, and if they don't understand the reason why, or they cannot make an informed decision as to whether it was their choice or not. But you've now had a period of time where those loved ones may not have been seen for 3 to 6 months. So have you found that you're getting a lot more calls in relation to people not being able to see people in care homes, worried, anxious about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing I want to say is I think people who work in care homes and care home managers, registered managers, are in an incredibly difficult position here. We do recognise that completely. We've supported about 500,000 people since March, since the end of March, and half of those inquiries are about care home visits and worries about care homes. Initially worrying that their resident, their loved one was a resident and was going to catch it, and more recently worried about the frustrations of still not being able to visit in some circumstances or in many circumstances. So it's really filled our advisors' heads and us as an organisation over the last 6 months. And we wrote back in April, we wrote to Matt Hancock asking for various things to be put in place. And if you remember, at that time, many care homes were struggling with PPE supplies, accepting residents or patients directly from hospitals who hadn't been tested for the virus, and so we're bringing the virus into their care home. And also, it wasn't until the very, very end of April that care homes got advice and guidance from the government to stop their workers, their care staff, working across more than one site. And so, many care home managers had already brought that in place by themselves, but the government hadn't been as supportive as we would like them to be to care home.
Yeah, I mean, I speak to a lot of care home operators, a lot of care home managers, certainly throughout that period of time, right back in the early stages. I mean, I'm probably in a privileged position that I can kind of say it as it is, but the support mechanisms, the information that was coming from government at the time was either very lackluster or it was confusing. One day they're saying one thing, the next day they're saying another. Every care home in the country, ultimately, their first priority is going to be the people residing within that care home. That's where it should be. So they automatically went into protection measures of, if we can shut the outside world out from our internal community, we're going to save lives. And those that were unable to do that, going back to some of the things that you mentioned there about taking in people from hospitals who had not been tested, we're putting the people that resided there into very vulnerable positions. So family members at this moment in time, I think we're seeing effects of this. Family members at this moment in time were absolutely petrified because all they were hearing on the news. I mean, government even went so far to say that the hub sites for the coronavirus will be in care homes. So if you had someone who was in that care home and you couldn't access, the fear that it must have been if it does get into it. And then you've got the second part of someone really struggling at home who needs a break, who is now looking at a care home and saying, there is no way I'm putting my loved one into a care home because it's still out there. And if it gets into the care home, then the likelihood is that my loved one's going to get it. So I'll protect them at home. So we've just created this huge problem that, I mean, I'm not sitting here to say that I have the solution to it, but they can't just leave it as it is, because care homes are still in a situation. Yes, some have been amazing in creating, perspex rooms or the use of technology with Skype and Facebook and everything like that, but it's still not that personal touch. It's still looking at someone behind a screen. But then if I'm speaking to those care homes, they wouldn't have a clue when they think they're going to be able to open up the care home again, because they're not getting any advice on that. And if they do get a bit of advice, then all of a sudden they hear that Leicester's gone back into lockdown or Preston's gone back into lockdown. So the minute they start to think about it, they remove themselves straight away back into the protection measure. And there must be a horrible feeling out there that you could lose your loved one. And they may pass away for whatever reason, because COVID is not the only reason. You've got old age. There's people, we're going into the winter season. You've got infections. There's a number of reasons why someone may pass away, but they may not have seen their loved one for 6 months or more. I mean, that must be a horrendous thing. And I'm sure, like you said, your 250,000 calls, the 50% of the calls coming through, they're the sort of things that you're hearing, that anxiety, that worry.
Yeah, we're hearing a lot of that, Paul. And I think the government, missed a trick very early on around testing and testing people from hospitals being discharged, but also testing care home staff. And that's been, just not enabled well. And even now, there are issues around testing that we hear on a daily basis from frustrated care home staff themselves. I think the other trick that the government is missing is that a family carer, and care homes absolutely get this, and the staff absolutely get this, that a family carer can bring a kind of be part of that care team. Yeah. Obviously, they're not a professional carer, but often they would visit at meal times to encourage their loved one to eat, which supports care staff when they're doing that, encourage them to do things that generally they're reluctant to do, like perhaps clean their teeth. But the amount of deaths is just frightening, really. 1 in 4 of all the deaths in the UK has been someone living with dementia. And then on top of that, there's around 52,000 unexplained deaths, which we really think is part of those deaths are people who've just given up. So they haven't seen their loved ones for a very long time. We've had a lot of evidence from carers to say the social isolation has resulted in increased symptoms. People have lost the power of speech much more quickly than predicted, all because of lockdown and lack of contact from their loved ones. And you're quite right, the FaceTime, etc. It's an option, and care homes have really worked hard to bring those options in, but it isn't the same as having someone there. So, you'll have heard of John's campaign, I'm absolutely sure, where a number of dementia charities such as ourselves are asking the government to help care homes recognise one member of their family, just one, but to treat them and test them in the same way as they would a professional carer. And that would really support care home staff and obviously residents as well.
I was just thinking that in my head as you were talking, particularly around John's campaign, but someone may know the answer to this. I mean, in care homes now, you've got the weekly testing that's up and running. Are you allowed to use that testing system on relatives, even if it's one person, or is it restricting you to just staff that are employed? I mean, Helen, you may know the answer to that. I don't, which is why I'm putting it out there. But if somebody does know the answer to that, it's worth putting it in the comments section of this video, because I'd be interested to know. Because if you are able to test people outside of your workforce, then that's the answer. Put the one person on weekly testing at the same time you're doing your own staff. We've now got into a system where we're doing that on a regular basis. So it wouldn't be that big a challenge to actually incorporate it. But interesting to know whether you're actually allowed to do that or not. Helen, do you know the answer to that?
I don't, Paul,
Mhm.
but I do know that we're trying to fight to get our frontline workers recognised, our advisors who go into people's homes, obviously with the full PPE and lots of safeguarding. And our workers don't meet the criteria at the moment for the testing
Yeah.
programme. So I would imagine that families don't either, but I don't know that to be a fact.
Be interesting, because that is potentially a good solution for care homes if they could do it. And I'm sure care homes would be happy to do that at that point. And like you said, it brings back that sense of, because for some people there, it doesn't matter. You know, I'm going to just remove the word dementia for a moment, because this makes no difference whether you have dementia or not. But there will be a sense of abandonment at this moment in time. And if we can find a way to address that, and at least alleviate some of that problem, it's going to help those carers in that care home who are now actually feeling the side effects from the people that they look after. Now, I'm not saying that you're not, because a lot of care homes are doing more activities, that they're really pushing out, and care staff have worked tremendously well, which is why when I see the negative press coming, it infuriates me. Because I know the hours that they're putting in, I know how much compassion and care they have, but there has to be some relief to them. And sometimes a family member coming and visiting for an hour is the relief moment to the carer on the floor.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And I think the other thing that's being overlooked is the bereavements that care home staff will feel,
yeah,
because a care home is a family, a big extended family, but care workers will feel bereft with so many resident deaths. And I don't know what support's being provided for them. But again, government should be giving resource for better support really all round.
yeah, 100%. And this isn't to take it to political. We're talking about the government as in today's government. So if you have a different, I don't want this to be a bashing of the Conservative Party in the comments section. No matter which government was in position or which party was in position, they have actions they've got to take. And ultimately, what I'm saying, and I think, without putting words into your mouth, Helen, is they must do better. They've got to do more to bring that support. Um, so, I mean, there's a couple of things I just want to touch upon. One of the things that raised big awareness for myself a number of years ago, with the charity, was the Dementia Friends. And that seemed to have such a big impact. Is that still out there? Is it still going? Is it still as relevant today? Well, maybe not right now, but is it still something that the service offers?
Yeah, Dementia Friends is a massive part of our organisation. Yeah, so much so it has its own website, so just dementiafriends.org.uk. We ask everyone if they can spare just a few minutes. It doesn't take a lot of time to do a quick online course, and then you become a dementia friend. And the idea of that is so that we raise awareness of what dementia actually is. And we enable people living with a condition, living in a community, to feel less isolated. So if you work in a hairdresser's or a pub or a restaurant, wherever, if you just have that basic awareness of what dementia is and what some of the symptoms are, you're much more likely to be able to support people living with a condition and their families who might come to have a meal out. It's a great thing to do, and I would ask everybody just to spend a few minutes. And then if you're really keen, you can go on to become a Dementia Friend champion, who we ask to do some training in the community when we're back to being able to do this face to face. To go into, could be anything, could be a school, could be a church, could be a local shop or a post office, just to talk about dementia to the staff there. And that way, one, dementia becomes much more acceptable as a condition almost. People know just a little bit about it. We're not going to turn you into dementia experts overnight, but just raising awareness of why people need support living in the community. I think it's amazing.
It is. And here's something, I mean, on my other side of the businesses that we have, I obviously know hundreds of trainers out there. Now, you are the people that have got the expertise, you know how to teach, you know how to present. give something back. At the end of the day, go give that voluntary service back, and help on that. So all the trainings that I know, go onto that website and have a look, and see whether you can support in that way, because you already have the skill set of how to present and give knowledge, and lesson plan and that. Okay, I've taken up quite a lot of your time, Helen, and I'm so grateful for it. And I'm sure the viewers are as well, because you've answered some real big questions. There's one last thing that I want to talk about, but before I do, I just want to recap on a couple of things. Guys, the most important things I heard there was the services and the support that the Alzheimer's Society offer. And it's not just Alzheimer's, it's dementia. Go access it. Helen, what the website? Did it Google search Alzheimer's Society? It'll bring it up.
And it's really simple. It will bring it up, but it's just alzheimers.org.uk. And on there is so much resource. There's over 100 fact sheets, all written in a dementia-friendly way, so they can be accessed by people living with a condition. There's all kinds of things. There's the ways you can donate and support us financially, but the information out there is just vast. So go and have a look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. The second point was that we heard it from Helen herself. £40 million this year could be lost in donations. £40 million. We've got to put some of that back into the pot. We've got to make sure that this charity is able to continue on the course and hit those objectives and offer that support that we're doing. So please, Helen's given her time up today for free, as do all our speakers. I gave my time up to do these talks as well, free of charge. If you've watched this and you've found this insightful, if you've thought that this has helped, if it's signposted you to go do something, or to gather information, donate. Just give a few pounds, go on the website and do it. That's not money coming to me. It's not money going direct to Helen. It's money that's ultimately coming back to you at some point in your life, as we heard from the stats. So please, let's try. I'm not saying we're going to raise £40 million here, but do you know what? Even if we raised a couple of £1,000, it's been well worthwhile, and then it be really appreciated. Okay, the third thing that I wanted to touch on, just to recap there, was the John's campaign. So I really would like to know the answer to that testing, and I think it'd be good as well if we could feed that information back to the charity to say, no, this is what the conditions are, because these guys are frontline and going and campaigning against the government. And no disrespect, I don't think the government's going to listen to me, and I don't think they're going to listen to you, the listener, unless you've got big connections. But they have to listen to the organizations such as the Alzheimer's Society. So let's get the information back to them so they can campaign and help us out in relation to that. And keep up the work that you're doing, because you are doing a brilliant work. And this has not been a pecking you on the head. This is not your fault. I completely get it, understand it. People that you're caring for, their loved ones, they get it. They understand it. They're just frustrated. I can see it. They're seeing people going to the pub and out to meals for a restaurant. They're all going back to work and they're thinking, why can't I see mom or dad? If you have found a way around that, feed it into the comments box, share it out so other care homes can see what you've done and how they may be able to do likewise. This is not a time for competition. This is a time to actually, one, protect the people that we care for, but two, involve the families fully and get things back to a sense of normality at a time when things might not be normal. But if the world is moving back to a sense of normality, so do we. We have to move in that direction. Okay, the very last thing I want to talk about, and I put my T-shirt on today, especially for this. So you might not see it clearly on the screen. I'll try and move out the way of the mic, but you can see we've got the memory walk. Helen, right at the end of this, I'm going to talk about what we're doing for that, but can you tell everybody what memory walk is? What is it you're trying to achieve from it?
Yeah, I absolutely adore Memory Walk. I'm known for it in our organisation of kind of 1,700 employees. I'm known to be the Memory Walk Queen. And it's a fundraising event primarily. where normally we ask people to take on sponsorship and to come to an organised walk. I think we have about 40, 45 a year normally, all over the 3 nations that we work in. It's a great day, and I love them because a lot of people are there in memory of people they've either lost to dementia or maybe in care homes at that moment. And you see people wearing on their t-shirts kind of a badge saying "walking for," my mum, my grandma, and photographs. You see whole families there. So many dogs I can't even count. And it's a great event. However, none of those can take place this year because of the restrictions that we're experiencing. So we've launched something called Memory Walk Your Way, Your Walk Your Way. And we're asking people to still to do the walk, but perhaps in their family bubble that they're safe to be in. And still try to get sponsorship or to donate for us. So you can still get the t-shirts. Again, online, if you go on our website and put in Memory Walk in the search box, it'll come up off the page anyway, probably on the introduction page of the website. They're incredible events, and they raise so much money for us that we're worried without them this year we'll be even more financially restricted than we are already.
So based on that, we are, if the events are cancelled, if you can't go to the events for whatever reason, I think what you just touched on there is very important. You can still go walk yourself, or you can take your family members and do it and get those donations. As an office here, the team made a decision that they were going to do a memory walk as well. So on the 20th of September, we're all going to the Lake District, and we've planned out a 10-mile route. It's not an easy 10 miles. And some of the team in the office were sort of like trying to get the route changed, but no, we're doing that route. You can go on and sponsor us. I'm going to get Katie from her team, who does all the edits to these videos, to put the link up on this video. So it should be appearing anytime soon if you are watching. Go onto her Facebook page. It's all over there as well, and donate for our guys in the office. And what I'm going to do as well, I mean, we are, the other side of my business is a training company. We deliver lots of training all over the country, be it virtual or be it face-to-face in health and social care. My finance director is probably going to get a little bit annoyed about what I say now. But what I'm going to commit to now is in the month of September, every course that we deliver, I'm going to donate £5 straight in to the Alzheimer Society. So that should be a good chunk of cash. It's not the 40 million. I'm not that. We're not that big, but we'll get that chunk of cash in. But go on to her page, and please sponsor her team doing that walk. We are taking a camera crew with us with drones and everything like that. We are spacing ourselves out. That's a good thing about being outdoors. And we're taking, some care home managers are coming along, and the plan is that we will have conversations on the route to highlight, discussions around people that we've cared for, family members that we may have lost or have who are going through a form of dementia. So understandably, we're going to get lots of video out of that we'll be able to post on the site to help raise the awareness. But the most important thing, the reason why we're doing it, is to raise some money for these guys. That's what we're doing. If you're an office, why don't you do the same? If you're a team that's working closely together every day, if you're a family out there that want to do the similar thing, do the same. Try and get some sponsorship money. This is, I've said it about 10 times, and I'll say it once more. This is so important. You have to understand that charities such as the Alzheimer Society have lost so much money because events have been cancelled. That's where most of the money came from. Yeah. You cannot look back in 2 years' time and find that they're no longer there because we didn't help them out at this moment in time. I may get done for saying this. If they go, then it will not be in the forefront of government's mind, and things will deteriorate fast. So help those charities out, and help this specific charity out, because, Helen, you said it, 1 in 4 people, died with dementia. Wow, come on. Yeah. Worst case scenario here is that you're going to be £2 or £3 down in your pocket. Yeah. Don't have the pint of beer in the pub. Put it into the pockets of these guys. They're doing exceptional work. Helen, I want to thank you very much for your time. I think you've given us so much insight, not just into what the charity does, but the service that you offer. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to appreciate it. So thank you very much for everything you're doing and continue to do, and the 15 years service that you've given so far. Incredible. It's great stuff.
Thanks, Paul, and thank you for your generosity and all your team for doing the walk, and anybody else doing your way memory walk. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, no, that's what we're all here to do, help. So if you've listened to this, give it a like, put a comment. Remember, I want the answer to that question I asked, and donate some money. You can catch this either on Facebook, LinkedIn. I normally put it on there as well. Instagram. I'm getting really hip and cool with all this stuff now. But we have a YouTube channel called CBAT TV, and we get wonderful people like Helen on. I want you to watch this one and do something about it. Take action. Yeah, don't just listen. Yeah, I'll see you next time on CBAT TV. So from me, thank you very much for listening. And Helen, I'll let you have the last word.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me. It's been my pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, guys. I'll see you soon, and I'll catch you next time.